Hello, and welcome to Monday Musing. Honestly, nothing's right, is it? Look at this. Now I've got that. Framing's all important in this world, and I've got it wrong. Okay, right. There's loads of technology beeping on my desk at the moment, and that's because I've got some crossover between day job and hobby job. So you'll have to excuse the buzzing and stuff, and I'll at some point probably have to respond to a message. But that doesn't matter for now. Let me first ask all you wonderful people out there. One, can you hear me okay? Two, do I sound unintentionally like Barry White? That's probably the most important two facts I need to know before we move on to the subject of tonight's show, which is something along the lines of what makes a good gaming board, particularly for Necromunda, but I think it also applies, as I said in the description, for things like Frostgrave, Age of Sigmar, and 40k in general. So that's tonight's main theme of the Muse. I would love to hear from people on what they think is important. I've talked a little bit in the past about what makes a good gaming table. That was one of my previous shows, of course, where I showed the sort of various tables I've built over the years. I'm not going to focus too much on tables I've built previously, gaming boards rather I've built previously. A lot of them are on the channel anyway, but I do need to go through some of the ideas and certainly some of the decision making process I go through when designing what I consider a good gaming board. Okay, let's just check the chat briefly before I jump back. I sound slightly hoarse, one might say pony. Okay, hopefully that's slightly bassy in my opinion. Okay, that might be my voice, I don't know. There seemed to be a technical problem last time. And apologies. Do I sound like I've got a bit of a cold? I haven't got a little bit of a cold. I've had a bit of a dry throat since I was in hospital, and it doesn't seem to want to go away. So I have with me a bottle of Buxton water. Other water is available via supermarkets and online retailers, but hopefully that will help with the voice as we go through the show. So let's have a quick jump back through the chat. We've had some Alastair was in the chat right at the beginning with Ralph Hummel as well. We've got Reaper 28 Grim, Derpimus Maximus, Marty Milligan, and Ralph Hummel is in there as well. So welcome one and all. I think later on I was pretty certain we were joined by Surreal. I feel for you, buddy, by the way. I was looking back at some of the chat you were saying, so I hope that you are on the mend soon and feeling much better. We've got Orc Boys. Apologies if I've missed everyone, but the scrolling is a bit crazy on my machine today. Who else have we got in the chat? That for a while was the crowd, I think, for a while. Paul Collier joined us as well, saying, hi, everyone. And the question around building Thunderwolf cavalry. Reading the FAQ, is it me or can I not put chainswords and storm shields on them? I don't think you can anymore. I think that's been some kind of change, but you'll again, hopefully somebody else has answered that. Al Kirkham says, "Hello, Phil. Hope all is well with her back now. I'm afraid I'm back in hospital tomorrow morning, and I am also going to be in hospital on Wednesday as well. So, unfortunately, the operation, whilst I was extremely excited at the start of the success, unfortunately is made a turn for the worst. So they have called me back into the hospital. So luckily enough, they've called me back in on a Tuesday and a Wednesday, which allowed me to continue with the Monday musing. Although I will only be in my chair for an hour tonight, if that's okay with everyone. Al Kirkham is in there as well. I think I just mentioned Al, so apologies. Paul Collier and what else have we got in here? Derpimus Maximus, and Surreal. So yes, it looks like a crowd was chatting for a while. Actually, I'm trying to spot anybody else. Gonk has joined the chat. Hi, Gonk. Those about to hobby, salute you. Hey, Gonk, it's good for you to join the chat. Calling me Emperor Phil. Honestly, I am not deserving of your fine comments. The Johnsonator is in there as well. And I can see Troy G as well saying hello to all. So hello, Troy G. And Palos 01's then there, the last of his Poxwalkers. People are working on Sepulchre Guard from the Orc Boys, the last of the Poxwalkers from Palos. Thordalim is joining us. Ah, my goodness, there's a crowd tonight. Alexander Williams simply saying nothing more than the mightiest chant ever invented. Wah! And Heartsick and Ruben for the Chaos Gods. That definitely looks like someone coming over from Chapter Master Valrak, but I don't know. It's just the enthusiasm of the uppercase there as well, maybe. Jay Thomas doing some conversion work at the moment. And who else have we got? Droy G finished building his Eldar army last week while off work, and Coleman says something around the beard fairy. I'm completely confused now. Okay, lots of people saying yes, they can hear me and those kind of things, and asking about my health. I think I've covered that. I don't. Oh wait, we have Danielle Balinari joining the show from Switzerland. So welcome. Finally made it to a show. I'm glad you can join us. It's always nice when we see new people on the chat as well. Echo 220 is raiding indeed. So it sounds like. Yep, there's a raid going off, which is wonderful. Chapter Master Chamber raid from Heartsick. Yes, okay. Thank you very much, Valrak, for sending all of these wonderful... Jamie Armstrong is here because Chapter Master Valrak sent him across. So I do love Chapter Master Valrak's rants and raves and gamings. I don't get the computer gaming very much, so when he starts talking about upgrades and power armors and configuration and stuff like that, completely lost. But I do like the stuff where he just chats about the hobby as well, and he's done some great shows recently. Tabletop Ops is saying, oh, I've got some... Ooh, okay. Scott Bill says, just posted some photos of my GSC Scions on WGO Facebook. Why, Scott? Why would you do that? You know you're going to make me jealous. And Tabletop's Officer asking, did I get a game with Mini Wargaming? No, in the end, they used their Friday for official gaming with the community team. And it was kind of fortunate because on Thursday afternoon, when I was all set to go to... Warhammer World, Thursday afternoon is when I had my relapse and I developed an infection on my spine and I ended up in a great deal of pain and I was unable to walk for 2 days. So that is under control now, at least. So no, it was good because if they hadn't have turned me down and then I wouldn't have been able to make it, I would have been absolutely gutted. So Vicious Vicious is joining us from the Valrak and Heresy. Thank you very much, Vicious Vicious, and a great supporter of the Valrak channel as well. So Eric Brown, hope you get better soon. Thank you very much. If you can, I would like you to fly over to California and we could get a game on. Orcs are twiddling their thumbs. I would love that, Eric. We were talking, myself and Sam, only the other day, of saying one way or another, we need to do some kind of US tour. And I know we're not a huge channel and all the rest, but it'd be so much fun if we could somehow get the money together for some sort of relatively cheap flights and car hire and all the rest and do a US tour, or at least catch a couple of cities and maybe do one coast 1 year and one coast the other year or something like that, but do some games over there. It would be absolutely brilliant and brilliant for the channel as well. And Switzerland, whereabouts? Ralph Hummel asking whereabouts in Switzerland. So we'll see where that comes back from. Jamie Armstrong, it says at Chester Master Valkyrie, we are now equal in chat. Yay. Chapter Master Valrak, I am no man's equal. I think we'll just let the Valrakian craziness continue for a while I talk a little bit then about what I'm hoping to cover tonight. So I had some prepared stuff. I had some prepared graphics and I had some all sorts of stuff. And I've had a terrible technical night. and I've lost all sorts of work, and I've had all sorts of problems, and I've lost a backup on the device as well. But the good news, you know what? I almost daren't say this, but I think we've got somewhere with the forum. I've changed provider. I basically, after a week and a half of chasing those other guys to no results whatsoever, we appear to have some form of working forum, but as yet Sam's not really seen it, nor have we had chance to configure it. So it's early days, but so far at the moment you can create posts, you can add chat, I think there's even a chat room and a messenger and all sorts of functionality, but it just seems to be behaving a little bit weird, as these technical things tend to do when you're trying to get so many different technical things talking to each other. So there we're at, and it was at least a partial success, even though I've lost a bunch of stuff. Let's start with a few things though. So while people are thinking of what makes a good gaming table for them, and when I say gaming table, I mean the board, the actual board, the environment we create. And I'll go through some of I think the creative process, and I'm going to have to do it verbally because I've lost my wonderful presentation which talked about it. I start with narrative, is always my starting point for a board, and I know that sounds crazy to a degree, but as I've said all along, I think wargaming is part painting, part game, part hobby, part competitive streak in all of us, but it's also part storytelling. I think none of us can avoid having that little inner narrative going off in our heads, and we talk about our characters, models, units in a very sort of personified way. We talk about our heroes as real heroes. I tell tales of how my Farseer dived across a battle, valiantly going into battle, which of course he did none of that. I simply rolled a dice and moved him a few inches, but it forms and weaves a narrative, I think. So I do think when you start with looking at the board, a good place to start is thinking about the narrative. So what is it? Where is it? Why are people fighting over it? What is the landscape like? What's the planet like? What is the scenery going to be like? And I think the desert board, which I did a series of stuff on, was a good one as a starting point. For those of you who are long time fans of the channel, as long as we've been going, which feels like a long time now. We've got several hundred videos out there now, so we have been going a while. But I've got a kind of semi-personal project / channel project, which is to build up towards a Tyrannid High Fleet Invasion campaign set of games for the website, and we're experimenting with different formats for those games and for them to include different role systems. So I very much intend to use Necromunda as part of some of that campaign. It's definitely going to include sort of standard 40k games, narrative 40k games, open play 40k games, and bordering on apocalypse 40k games. But alongside the idea of encompassing those different game styles, I also want the campaign to cover a different range of scenario, location, and the factions involved in that. So I want it to be as inclusive as possible. So it's not just about a planet that gets invaded. It can be about a system, which gives us a range of options to cover at least. The new sort of terrible malediction that's taking place all over the place across the universe and ripping it apart with a warp and all the rest can form into that. So we can have a system that has got both warp-tinged planets and perfectly fine and acceptable planets, because the whole universe has gone to a mess. So, from a board point of view, the desert board was simply one of those boards, and it was representing two different stages of the narrative. It can give me a moon, it can give me a barren wasteland, it can give me the outskirts of a city, but simultaneously it could also represent the latter stages of a high fleet invasion, or one where the planet has been scoured of all life and there is a mission to recover some ancient artifact that was left behind on the planet, hopefully buried, hopefully untouched by the Hive Fleet. So again, I'm thinking, where is this board going to fit into the narrative of those games? And what on the one surface is a desert board, it's just a single board, but if you start to change the narrative and then think about some of the key scenery pieces that apply to that board, you can very quickly change either the timeline of that location or the very nature of that location. Classic example would be, use the desert board as it is with just its desert terrain, the big spiky stuff. I'm sure I've probably got somewhere in all of this probably some pictures, which if you bear with me, I'll try and find some as we click around as well. So it can serve just as a desert board. But if I was to add a single key piece of central terrain, which is maybe a sinkhole exposing a bit of architecture, then that could be the place where that piece of valuable technology has been buried and long since abandoned. And suddenly we've got an adaptable theme. So it's not just about the board; it's also about the terrain that you build that's going on with it. Amongst all of this, for those of you who are aware, I built a Zone Mortalis board, and the Zone Mortalis was called a Mine Mortalis board because it was based on a mine. I'm going to see if I can quickly find that. I'm sure you're all probably quite terribly bored right now of looking at that terrain, but if I can at least find one or two images of it. Oh, I had all of this prepared. It's so frustrating. I hope you understand. Here we go. So this was the work in progress, and as I've said, here's some of the later shots, but I don't think I've got any sort of finished shots yet. So there's a good example, I think, probably of I think that's a 4x4 section. It's actually capable of going 6x4, so very familiar layout with Zone Mortalis. But the idea is it's an underground mine. It's where my Gene Stealer cult do their day job. That's what they're all about. So that that's where they're working, that's where they're scurrying away and making their plans. There's even a throne room in there for the patriarch and all the rest. I don't think that's actually illustrated on that particular image, and no doubt I won't be able to find it for you even if I wanted to. Here's a close-up shot, at least, as you can see some of the later details going in. So I had these little bundles of cables going across from wire to window to window. Really immersive, really wanted it to be quite interesting. And again, that just forms just one part of that campaign. I coloured it to be a similar colour scheme to the desert board. They can go together, they can go separately. I could build an interface wall between them, so you could be fighting in open ground and then have a wall section which would have an archway or a door or an entrance to the mine, and you go in that into the zone section. So when I think about my Necromunda board, I'm thinking, well, I mean, there's a perfectly usable, to a degree, Necromunda board, except it lacks height, of course. And maybe moving on from the aesthetic and the narrative, which I think is an important aspect, I think you also have to have an idea of the mechanic of the game and how the mechanic of the game can impact the usefulness of scenery. Yes, that's a vertical Zone Mortalis board, but it's just for storage. Let me just come back to this screen. So before I go on to, I think, the next piece, beyond narrative, think about the story, think about its location, think about how that narrative can be adapted and evolved. Think about how the scenery can be used. The scenery can have an impact on the board as a whole. Try and make modular scenery that enables you to reuse 90% of the board, but by changing 10% of the modular scenery, evolve or completely change the scenario that you're playing to. So try and build that into it. That is my greatest challenge at the moment for Frostgrave. I've been designing the boards, we're working on them, and we're going to be doing a whole bunch of videos on them. There's a lot of paperwork taking place at the moment. My worry about the Frostgrave boards is they're becoming almost dioramas, and they're one-shot wonders in terms of the game. You'll soon learn where all the line of sights are. You'll soon learn where all the hidey holes are, and before you know it, it becomes you know, the sniper on Call of Duty that always hangs around at the top of the same tower every time. Okay, I'm a bit old school. When I talk about Call of Duty, I talk about it the first time. I'm sure they've made the game far more dynamic now to stop those kind of behaviours. Okay, right. Let's have a look at chat before we move on to the next bit. And also, while I'm looking at chat, maybe if I can at least attempt to find some of the content that I'd prepared as well. But I have to say, no promises, because it's really not looking good at the moment. One moment. Let me just have a quick click on something and possibly a drink. Here we go. So let's just have a drink. Right, let's catch up with the chat. Will you do all about the bug reports in the Tyrannid campaign? All about the bug reports in the Tyrannid campaign. Will I do them all? Yes, I suppose so. I think I do want it to be a form of entertainment. It is going to take more time. So Jack, my son, has been developing graphics for me, which is nice. Part of his photography A-level, he's been working on rendered imagery. So he's been creating a bunch of planetscapes for me and backgrounds and backdrops and all those kind of things, which is really exciting. I'm pretty pleased about that as well. So that's good. Oh, crikey, I've just found a bunch of images. We can at least have a look at some of this stuff. Won't be the... Oh, my goodness me. Some of it's ancient, though, so we'll see. So that's pretty good. But yes, I think some kind of fun little reports and stuff like that going off will be fun. Whether I can get a hat to wear and be a reporter and say for more info, click here. I don't know whether I'll have time to that. John Snade says at WGO, Phil, your Tyrannid theme Zone Mortalis board is the nuts. Thank you very much. It's much nicer finished, and it's to my ongoing shame that we haven't done enough battles with it at the moment, but we're trying to rectify that. Obviously, all of these trips to the hospital and the rest for me are really monumentally a pain up the buttski. In terms of being able to get more content done for the channel. So Sam's been very patient and doing his best to keep the content going. I have at least completed 2 videos today, so that's good news. Neither of them, unfortunately, are battle reports. If I'm going to be in hospital for 2 days, yes, my laptop is going with me. Right, that's why I'm sticking to the first GH. I couldn't be bothered playing without Bugmen. Bollocks, and the same without them. I think that's an internal conversation, so let's just stick with the Outwar Gamer Online ones. So trying to find lost artifacts sounds raveny to me. Yes, it's a perfect place for the Blood Ravens, and it would be wonderful to involve them somehow. Rustbelt Blacksmith says, I've seen it written somewhere that Necromunda is going to work Genestealer Cult into the game. Yes, I've heard that too, and it would be incredibly exciting. You know, even if they don't officially do it, I think I can definitely do it for the channel, but it would make no sense for them whatsoever not to write Genestealer Cult into it. Strangely enough, of course, the new rule book references both Eldar and I'm sure this is just done to tease the community, but squats as well. So there's a bit of fluff in there talking about one of the hives and one of the hive towers, and in that tower is where they essentially put they have a more liberal attitude than the rest of the Imperium to who can occupy it, and Eldar and squats are mentioned within the narrative, but so maybe we'll see some of the Xenos races. I don't think you're going to see orcs, because they just don't play, do they? But Eldar do have that reputation of being traders. Tau? No, probably not. Maybe you'll see Eldar. Maybe you'll see Genestealer Cult. Other than that, we'll see where they go with it. Right, okay then. So Reaper says, so trying to find... Oh, sorry, that's me reading the same comment again. What are my opinions on... Oh my goodness me, the chat's gone crazy. What are my opinions on Dust 1947? I don't have an opinion. I'm aware of it. I've looked at it. It's one of those weird World War games. I'm pretty certain it predated Conflict 47. Is that correct? It looks like a good system and it looks like a fun game, but I don't play it. But I do know it's got a great fan base out there and some very dedicated gamers. Channel 1 Gaming, I love the models. Hopefully the new game will be done right. Well, that's going to be That's going to be tested soon, and I hope so too. Right, Furious George says, any chips for cheap, effective scenery for people on a budget? Yes. I think possibly two things. Foam cord card. So that's the foam core card you can buy. Is really, I mean, on the scale of things, quite cheap. But also a foam core card and a hot glue gun will get you a long way in the creation of scenery. If you want to make scenery really quickly, if you want to make industrial scenery, a good scalpel, a ruler, some card, and a hot glue gun, and you are flying, to be honest. Emulsion paints, those kind of things, get color matched to you can get them color matched to Citadel paints if you go down to the DIY stores. Paint everything in emulsion paint. Dry brushing, you can go for the permacrete look and those kind of things. So for an industrial look, foam core card. For a natural look, I don't think you can go wrong with expanding foam. And in fact, I am doing a tutorial on expanding foam scenery for our lava table as well. And basically, I have bought 2 cans of expanding foam. It cost me about £15. And that's probably going to be it for outlay. I've got some, well, in fairness, I've come up with a clever technique to enable me to gain height and structure to the work I'm going to do. But the effect we are going to be doing is creating lava terrain to match a lava mat that we were, I think, donated to the channel. If I remember, it's one of Gamer Mats, but Sam could tell me off for that because I may have got it wrong, but I believe it's a Gamer Mat EU mat with a lava, and we haven't got any lava terrain. And like I say, for £15, I'm definitely going to be able to make enough terrain to cover a 6x4 foot board. So that's if you want natural effects, expanding foam is brilliant. It's also good because it doesn't melt under various different paints. So because obviously you can say polystyrene, but polystyrene from packaging and stuff like that. But the problem is, to a degree, with polystyrene from packaging is, 1, polystyrene melts if you hit it with any form of solvent paint. 2, it's not actually that strong. But if you have expanding foam and let it properly cure, it's actually pretty tough stuff. It will take a bit of a batting. So that's for me. They're the 2, industrial or for built stuff. You can't beat the card. And for natural formations, I think expanding foam, they are going to be the cheapest and most effective way. And why not combine the 2? Why not have concrete buildings coming out of rock faces built out of expanding foam? Which, look out for the tutorial on doing that, because that will help you with that. Okay. Other than that, if you want to up the cost a little bit, you will see on, I think certainly on some of the chats I've done, I've talked about, I think they're called panel systems, and I've definitely linked it on the Facebook group in the past, and they do proper model architectural blue foam, which the truth is like I say, if you're then upping a notch on cost and you're prepared to pay that, I know for about £60 you can get 10mm thick box of blue foam, and they're going to be 2 foot by 2 foot, 10mm thick, and you will have 30 sheets of it, which is the main building block we're using for the for the Frostgrave board. So that's going to be a 4 foot by 6 foot board, certainly 4 foot by 4 foot board. And the total outlay on materials is about 60 quid, 60, 70 quid if you take into account the MDF base I'm putting it on. I mean, bear in mind there's things like PVA and stuff like that. But so there you go. That's if you go in the middle of the road. And if you really want to go crazy, get a 3D printer. Okay, sorry, that was a long answer. I do apologise. Could add LED lanterns to that wiring, says Akaria. I think that's in reference to my thing. I could have done. No, I didn't. Each board was 1 foot by 1 foot. And if you think I've done enough for a 6 foot, actually, in total, my board can be 8 foot by 4 foot, my Necromunda, my Zone Mortalis board. So you do the math. 8 times 4 lighting systems was not going to be done. But thank you anyway. Instead, I did object source lighting with my airbrush. Furious George, you could try to get broken models or broken vehicles and paint them. That's a great idea. One of my favourite ones as well is if I've got half an Eldar Lynx tank because when it arrived it was badly miscast. And of course, Forge World are brilliant. They sent me a replacement half, but that gives me the opportunity to have half a Lynx poking out a piece of terrain. Look around at those broken models or pick them up super cheap on eBay, or simply ask around at the hobby group for stuff that gets broken, you know. That is the Necromunda Underhive board. Yes, you are right. The Underhive board is, so this is from Madas. This is the Underhive board is very simply based on the Zone Mortalis board. So it's going to be fun to use. It's going to be much easier to work out line of sight, of course, but it doesn't take into account the 3D the 3D element of the game. What else have we got? Derpimus Maximus, have you considered adapting the Spacehook rules into GSC Mindboard? No, I haven't. That's an interesting point, actually. I've got Space Hulk, so that might be worth trying around. Although I do indeed want to build a Space Hulk. And, interestingly enough, although there is absolutely no chance I am going to find the image to represent it, but there are indeed, for want of a better word, the insides of... So very frustrating because I'm never going to be able to find this stuff now. But the insides of a Hive Fleet ship, which is part of my mine, because my mine featured, if you like, a crashed Tyrannid Leviathan somewhere in the bottoms. I'm just having a look now if I can actually find it, and unfortunately, no, I can't. So I will... Yeah, that's not going to happen. Okay, then. I will keep looking for that, but I'll put some stuff up on later. Did you see Kablam's idea for a Necromunda board? This is from the Orc Boys. Yes, the idea of a vertical Necromunda board. Yes. Yeah, it's a good idea. The wall interface between my Zone Mortalis board and the main game works on the same principle. There's layers, and interestingly enough, I've kind of designed mine to be used both as a piece of terrain on the standard 40k game, and also that can serve as a vertical-ish Necromunda board as well. I mean, Necromunda is definitely, I think, about height and line of sight as well, and we'll talk a little bit about that. But it's a good idea. It's and I'm sure he will do a sterling job in executing it. Frostgrave needs to have varying boards to allow for all scenarios, so definitely modular. Yes, that's my challenge at the moment. I want to make it beautiful. The more beautiful you make the terrain, the harder it becomes to be modular, because you really want to work on... You go from terrain to diorama, and it's always a challenge. Okay then, Tabletop Pop says, Phil, so how is your Caradron Overlord's army going? Seems like you have so much to do. My brother just picked up the Fire Slayers. Yes, I do indeed have so much to do. The Caradron Overlords is not yet... I took the models out of their boxes, and I started sorting them out in terms of weapon options and stuff like that. I did a bit of a SAM, actually, which is I've worked out how I'm going to configure them all and build my list and check I got enough spare parts, because I wanted to mess around with some conversions when I needed to check I got enough spare parts. So early days yet, but the good news is my Gene Stealer cult is pretty much there. I've got about 6 or 7 models that need completion, and they're the ones that will take a bit of time because they're the leaders and stuff. But I have been, when I can, and when I've been well enough over these last few days, I've done a little bit of painting using the wonderful Elstonation techniques, which have enabled me to really move on. I've also been spending quite a bit of time on these wonderful little collection of models, which is all of the Necromunda Underhive, and what a great set of models they are. So yes, we're still pushing on. Okay, what else have we got? Elstonation has joined us. There you go. Hi, Elstonation. How are you? When am I doing the magnetizing videos? Oh, I'm so sorry, Reaper. I do remember that. Yes, I'm a little bit behind. I've actually filmed it. I have got 3 videos that are basically complete and ready for upload, and then I'm going to, because I'm going to be going into hospital, I'm going to leave it to Sam to decide when to release them. because the release schedule is more his thing. I have shot the footage for 3 more videos. But they're not edited. One of them is magnetizing, so I will try and get that done as well, because it's just a quick tip. It goes through the whole process, so we should be able to get that up to you fairly soon. I'm hoping, should things go well in the hospital in the next couple of days, I'm going to be able to push on a little bit with content. Right, okay, what have we got? We've got Dave Dog has just jumped in. I've already got GW 3D scenery. You reckon the board you get with the game, with the base game, is typically just too small? Do I think so? Well, I think Necromunda Underhive is a 50% release, isn't it? It's a release based, it's a hybrid board game, and I think for people who want those sorts of hybrid board games, it will serve its purpose. If you want to do more with Necromunda, and it's a very immersive narrative-based game, so you very quickly want to do more with it, then yes, the table isn't big enough. I think realistically you need to be looking at 4x4 for a decent Necromunda game, given the range of some of the weapons and those kind of things. Then the challenge is going to be about the level of line of sight blocking and all the rest. Okay, where are we at now? Okay, I've lost the track a little bit. Let me come back down to some of those decision-making factors when building a board, and I talked a little bit about the mechanics. So I've touched a little bit on it with Necromunda. At least the full version of the site of the game, and certainly even Underhive, has a degree of line of sight. Depth is relevant to Necromunda, so height. So you need platforms, you need things to be pushed off on, etc. I want to jump a little bit into 40k, because I think what was good 40k scenery is not great 40k scenery right now, and it's something I'm having to address with the city board. Line of sight in 40k 8th edition has become so difficult to manage. You either have to house rule it, or you have to think about the scenery. Now, fortunately, with my city board, and I'm hoping, if you just bear with me a second, let me see if I can at least find something about the city board, and maybe I can. So give me a second. Oh dear me. Right. Crikey. Nope. Okay, well, I'll show you one element of it then. So, for instance, let's have a looky-see at this. Here we go. Drop over to the desktop. So this is just one aspect of the city board. These lower areas here are going to be covered in water effects, so they are grim, grimy industrial canals. This is where I'm trying to do some interesting stuff with the stuff, so I'm raising tables and stuff like that. On its whole, looks fine, looks good, but the reality is that's just not enough anymore. You can't stand somebody behind that thing and have 25% of the model obscured. In fact, you can't even line troops up behind that. Because the reality is a point of a hat is going to be poking over the top, a point of a weapon is going to be poking over the top, and before you know it, of course, you've just got unlimited line of sight, which is a challenge. Obviously these are defense barriers and stuff like that, so they will at least give some terrain coverage, but this is all meant to be sloping hills and stuff, and again, it's not going to be enough. So right now, under 40k, you have to really, really consider at great length how you're going to create line of sight blocking, how you're going to create shooting alleys, for want of a better word. And that line of sight blocking doesn't just need to apply to infantry if you want the game to be at least dynamic. And what I mean by that is you have to make people work with or against the terrain for the game to become dynamic. Otherwise, I think literally if the battlefield is too open, you might as well simply line your models up equidistantly and start plugging away. And what tends to happen in too open a battlefield is everything more or less clumps towards the middle anyway and gets dragged into combat. So you want to make people work around terrain. You want to make people hide behind terrain. You want people to benefit from terrain and simultaneously be penalized by terrain. So choosing which side of the board you go on becomes a genuine element of the game. I'm actually quite enjoying at the moment setting asymmetric tables up, and I think that's the other thing. You know, the whole way you set the terrain up and then you roll, and somebody gets to choose which side. Make one side really, really beneficial over the other, and then that roll becomes far more critical in the game. But to make a 40k table beneficial to one player or the other at the moment is you really have to think about line of sight. So the city I've built is all based on the Citadel ruins. They've got lots of windows, they've got lots of doorways, line of sight's going to be nigh and impossible. So I'm thinking now I need to block off the bottom floor, just so, and in some instances block off both floors, the bottom and the second floor, but leaving the third floor, if you like, as a ruin, just so those buildings become large line of sight blockers or medium line of sight blockers to make the game more dynamic. A city fight, if you think about a city fight with all open windows, even a ruined city fight, it just doesn't have enough going off in the game when you can shoot at the slightest point of a weapon. So, you know, I've got to reconfigure that terrain, and this is what I'm saying about how the dynamic of the game, when it shifts, can change the nature of the scenery that you need to create. So with Necromunda, it is about height, it is about line of sight, it is about narrow, you know, the width of the terrain as well. And I'd prepared a wonderful little presentation where I was showing the idea for my Necromunda board is to one that has both vertical and horizontal elements to it. So there's a vertical aspect to the board, but also a horizontal aspect to the board that kicks out at different levels. And I think even if you're not a great fan of the film, I'm thinking of the the Star Wars film. I can't remember the name of it now. It's irrelevant. The one with Count Dooku, but the battle between Obi-Wan and Count Dooku, where they're falling from level to level. That kind of thing is going on. I want that kind of dynamism to my Necromunda games. So I'm working out how I can not only create a stack of levels, but also offsets. And then how can you traverse between the two? That's either a pipe running down or something like that, with you know, gantries or ladders or platforms halfway. And if, you know, average movement is 5 or 6 inches or those kind of things, I need to make sure that a model can traverse to each platform within its movement allowance. So all of that, the dynamic of the game, the mechanic of the game, is informing the shape and size of the terrain I need to create for it. I'll start to release some sketches and stuff for Necromunda, but I have to say, right now, the 3D Necromunda board, we will be playing on terrain I've already built for some time. Because we've got quite a bit of 3D terrain anyway. We've also got the Zone Mortalis board. We've also got the standard stuff that comes, you know, in the Necromunda set. So you know, it's you know, it's good to go. And certainly for the first few games we're going to be doing for the channel, it's perfectly serviceable. But as we get into the more detailed games, we will be building up a more detailed Necromunda board. Okay, do we have where are we now then? Here we go. Thordalim says, Mini Wargaming did a vertical board like that, side scroller up, and used it in one of their campaigns. Yes, it's been around. I mean, the concept has been around for a while, you know, and it's not terribly new. It's not a new idea. I think, like anything, though, it's about the execution. People will always do interesting little things, won't they? One of my favourite boards I ever saw was where it was the exterior of a battlecruiser. And I can't remember, it may have been at Salute or somewhere like that. Or even though, you know what, I think it was back at one of the early games days when they were basing them at the NEC before they moved to the Rico Arena. And there was a huge flying ship, and it was made of metal, or at least coated in magnetic strips. And all of the models had little magnets on the bottom of the bases, so you could actually move from the top of the ship to the side of the ship to the bottom of the ship, and the whole thing rolled over as well. so you could get to the different services. I mean, brilliant idea. I loved it. I thought it was great fun. Okay, what have we got? Oh dear, I shouldn't have mentioned Star Wars. I know the films that don't exist and all the rest, but even so, it's from from an illustrative point of view, you get what I was trying to say. I have the high ground. Sorry, that's Jack's favourite internet meme out. But I have the high ground. Okay, Derpimus Maximus. One thing my gaming group used to do with Necromunda was play the floor is lava games where you could only move on upper levels or on small marked areas of ground level. Brilliant, fantastic. I'm certainly working on Toxic. The board I've been designing has a lot of toxic tanks that you will fall into, and if you fall into those, you will be doing a proper Joker. You're either coming back super strong or you're deader than dead McDead. So I've got big open vats with walkways over the top of, which should be a lot of fun. Okay. What else we got? Derpimus Maximus said, made for some interesting tactical play. Absolutely. Scenario pushing, the scenery and the table pushing gameplay, making it difficult, making it dynamic. You don't necessarily need lots of extra rules to do that. It can be achieved with your scenery. Jay Thomas says, my comments aren't showing up. That's lame. I can see your comment, Jay Thomas. Do you mean your comments aren't showing up somewhere else? Or were they not showing up and they're now showing up? If they are or aren't, Jay Thomas, then feel free to say your comments again and I will look out for them. If you are trying to pass a question on to me as well, if you do @Wargamer Online, all one word, it will highlight it in red for me as well, which makes my life a lot easier in terms of spotting which is internal chat and which is questions directed at me. So hopefully, Jay Thomas, that will sort you out. MCM 1966 says, evening all, missed a few of these live streams. No problem, MCM, it's good to have you back. Tabletop Ops is saying, what do you think of the up-and-coming chapter approved book? Do you think the NID will feel the nerf bat, or was it fleshed out prior to NID coming out? Who knows? Yeah, I mean, what do I think to it? Well, I'm kind of excited by it. I think it's going to be, I'm looking forward to it because I'm always looking for something that expands the gameplay. The idea of being able to customize, make your own custom vehicles and stuff. I think the only problem is with that aspect of it is we all know invariably open play isn't very popular. And what I mean by that is even amongst fairly closed gaming groups, it's hard to find someone who just will do open play. Because everybody wants a sense of fairness to the game, don't they? That's why I like the idea of campaign-based games where you can work with open play a little bit more and know that sometimes you're not there to win the mission, you are there to delay, you are there to achieve another objective that's above and beyond surviving. But the reality is, I think most players, when they sit down, want a sense of fairness, and therefore, the idea that the open play exists for hobbyists so they can have some fun, I just don't know how much actual play that actually gets, if you know what I mean, which I think is a shame. So that side of it, being able to create your own vehicles and stuff like that under the umbrella of open play, is that's my understanding of what they are offering us with that. We shall see. So there are certainly new missions, at least. Your reference to Tyranids in chapter approved, unknown by how that would affect them, to be honest, and maybe I've missed something in the reading. I mean, I've been looking at things like, obviously today's post was about the new missions that they're looking at, Defenders Deployment Zone and this Attacking Deployment Zone, this Sentinel. I mean, that'd be perfect for the board that I was just showing there. Look, if you actually look at that, I mean, how great will that board fit into that scenario? It's almost look at it, it's made for it. Oh, that's amazing. So that'll be fun. So that's good. But I'm not quite sure how it would act as a nerf to a single faction. So let me know. Or are you just saying, do I think that NID will get a nerf bat now now that it's been released. So let me know what your thoughts are. Personally, I think it's too early to really tell how chapter approve is going to affect too much. Like I say, for me, one of the things that was pretty interesting is your ability to we'll talk about my second most favorite thing of the week. I thought it was in here actually, so somewhere in here, isn't it? Chapter approved. So there we go. You get to design your own land raiders, and there's a reference in here which is somewhat confusing actually, unless I've missed something here. It says, for instance, the beauty of open play is the variety of experimentation it allows, and perhaps you could apply these rules to predators or even tyrannid biobeasts. And that's what I'm saying. You know, the best is the rules are the just guidelines aimed at providing a strong base to build your own conversion. So they're giving you a framework to be able to modify your models. And I assume now, with the fact that each weaponry, the idea is you can take a weapon, stick it on top, and as long as you pay the points for the weapon and pay the points for the original model, then, you know, there's some impact on transport capacity. But in essence, you're going to be able to, you know, stick Hellfrost and Inferno cannons on there and stuff like that. I think that's great. But like I say, they seem to be referencing it really in the terms of customizable or open play. I think, is that because it has a great deal of risk? That you could probably break the game a little bit with the right combination of daft weaponry. Who knows? Who knows? Less narrative, more wonderful little bit of spam somewhere on a vehicle somewhere. We'll see. So yes, I'll jump to the chat and see if anybody's added any clarity to that. You can't win. I have the high ground. Oh no, me. Oh, for heaven's sakes! I wish I hadn't started quoting Star Wars. Johnson Aid says, I play open play. So quick, so easy. I don't play often, so we just roll with a fairly chilled attitude. Just want to roll dice. Well, that is brilliant. I know very few players who would be willing to do open play. And Johnson Aid, does it or does it not require a degree of self-control? That's the question I would ask. Because what stops you just being, you know, showing up with all of that stuff that isn't just going to be about fun? And where is that contract? Where is that social contract between you and your friends? And I think that's the idea, isn't it? I'm surrounded by a lot of competitive players, and they just can't help themselves. They can't help themselves, I don't think. You know, Pink's a classic one. Pink just has to optimize to the 9th degree. Sam was talking on the chat the other night, you know, Frostgrave supposedly is about finding treasure. He's optimized his entire warband to kill. I know a lot of you were on his chat saying that isn't going to work in Frostgrave, but, you know, if the enemy does not have a hand, how does he press the button? Okay, Jay Thomas says, I like open play. I'm a new player, so less restrictions the better. I agree with you. You can have a lot of fun. Again, you know, like I say, my preference would be if I could get away with open play, I'd play more of it, definitely. Oh, what am I clicking on? Hold on a second. I clicked on the wrong button. There I am, back. Right, totally OT. I wrote to BL about the updates to EPUBs for codexes and battle zones and never got an answer from them, but the ones I have never been updated. Mine definitely have. My EPUBs definitely received an update. Obviously that doesn't necessarily mean all of them, but you know, I think I mentioned on the time on the forum, on the community page rather, the grinding advance or whatever has definitely been added to the Gene Stealer index, and I'm pretty certain one of my codexes has had an update as well. That I'm looking out for it, so the next time they show a list of updates, I'm going to screenshot it for you and show it to you. But one thing I didn't ask you is what platform are you on? Of course, are you on iTunes or are you doing your EPUBs through somewhere else? Because I was referring to the EPUBs that are listed on iTunes. They used to show the update history as well on iTunes, and unfortunately, GW have turned that facility off, so you can't see when it was last updated, which is somewhat annoying. But keep going, keep pressuring Black Library to do the updates, because I certainly feel it's one of the benefits from buying the digital version. I don't want to keep having to download digital FAQs as well. Come on, it takes 10 minutes to update an EPUB and publish it. Sorry, it's not a big job. Support your community. Any plans to build your own Shadespire board? I think from a Shadespire point of view, I'm hoping there's going to be a degree of crossover between that and Frostgrave and Age of Sigmar Skirmish, and I have yet to discuss that with Sam. But we will look into that. It's certainly the ability to produce them side by side, but it's certainly one of the conversations we will be having. Okay then. Derpimus Maximus says, well, that stops you just popping your whole collection down for role play. Is that people just won't play you? Like, yeah, well, that's the thing. It's a one-off. It's a one-off experience. Ralph Hummel says, I only play open play in Age of Sigmar. A lot of fun between mates. Well, brilliant. I am glad you've got that in your great gaming group. That is awesome. Okay. Jay Thomas, I'm an open play player. I think I mentioned that. So hopefully your comments are working now. I think. Yes, of course. And I've also read out the one about Shadespire. So sorry, I was just looking out for you to see if that got dealt with. Okay. Wargamer Online. Ralph says he gets them directly from Black Library. Okay. I wonder if that's different. I wonder if they don't put the updates onto the Black Library stuff. In iBooks, which is where I get mine from, there's a section on iBooks where you can look at updates, and it lists all the publications you've purchased and whether an updated version is available for you. It would be frustrating if they're updating them on one library and not on another one. So I'd check into that. Paolo says, we play open play using fluff as a guide rather than the list. It's all about the scenario and the story than the power gaming. That's cool. I mean, I tell you what's interesting about doing the battle reports for the channel. We experimented with open play a couple of times, and the audience out there doesn't seem to appreciate that. They want the stats, they want the list, they want the points. And I don't mean everybody. I just mean, put it this way, if you do a match play game, you don't get any complaints from people saying this isn't open play. Whereas if you do an open play game, you definitely get complaints from people going, well, that was just unbalanced from the start. Of course you were going to lose, and those kind of things. So I don't know whether we've been driven by the audience or at least the vocal audience a little bit on that, but that's an interesting one. I have definitely drifted off this chat, but anyway. Well, that's okay, isn't it? I mean, my back's absolutely killing me. I'm on painkillers and I have no idea what I've been talking about for the last hour, so it's okay if we've drifted a little bit. What I would like to do on a future Monday Musing then is I would like to revisit this subject. I would like to go into some specifics around how you can design that terrain. I think I will tie it in with the release of this lava terrain quick tutorial, so we'll get that up, and we'll follow this theme through, because I think there's a lot to be explored on this. I am Super Ali blah blah. Thank you very much for subscribing, Super Ali blah blah. Well, it completely put me off. I was meant to drink this during the show. Look at how much I've had to drink. Bear with me. Can I just... what can I do? You're just going to have to watch me drink. Is that okay? Okay. Right. My voice has come back a little bit. What was I saying? Let's revisit this subject. I'm hoping that when my back is better, I am going to... My plan will be to maybe do some... I've been looking at my data usage, and I think I can get away with some 90-minute shows and possibly some 2-hour shows. But I've also been setting up... Chug. Sorry, Surreal. I've also been setting up some technology in here, which will enable me to... also do some live streams when I'm creating terrain and stuff like that. So it's probably not going to work now, and it's in utter blackness, but as you can see, that's actually my gaming table. I think if I just stick my hand through to there, which is going to enable me to do things like some big scenery projects on there and to give you the overview as I'm working. And I've also got another camera set up as well, which will enable me to show you some handheld footage as I'm working on the projects, and I don't see why I just don't sort of live stream some of that stuff. But like I say, I really just need to focus on getting these couple of hospital appointments done, and hopefully be up and running. It's unfortunate that I didn't get the success I wanted from the last thing, but we shall prevail. Right, okay, I can see Akaria doing the diligent stuff, reminding people about premium membership and all the rest. And I have to say, we've had some wonderful support from all from both donators to the channel and from our premium members, which is all incredibly well appreciated. So thank you very much. If you're not already a premium member, it's just $2.99 a month, and we would love it to, and we would love to you so much. We're prepared to draw a single premium member from the list on the 20-something of this month, possibly the 29th. And you will be given £100 worth of Games Workshop models of your choice, excluding web exclusives though. Originally it was get yourself a starter set and £50 more. The YouTube one is going to remain a starter set. You pick a starter set. But for our premium members, why bother with a restriction? £100 worth of Games Workshop models, and you can pick, and all you have to do to be eligible for that prize draw is to pay a tiny $2.99 to the wonderful people at Wargamer Online. And that will help us with a bunch of stuff. Particularly, we've been investing into, like say, technology and all the rest. And here's a wee sneaky preview of. Can I get this in? Oh, I've broken it. Of the forum. This is how it's looking at the moment. Look at that handsome fella there. Look, it's me. I'm talking about me with Tess. And here's one of our developers who was uploading a very cool jazz image, El Dorado on a C90 cassette. Yes, that's what everything is about nowadays. So we are getting somewhere. Please don't all rush along and go, brilliant, I can use this forum now, because no, we are configuring it. As you can see, I've had to strip out a whole bunch of data. We've had to do a whole bunch of stuff, but it does look like we are in a position to be able to do self-attaching images and all the rest, and the ability to insert photos and all of the proper really nice stuff we wanted to do. So please support us as premium members, because that enables us to drive the website forward and provide all of you lovely people with a nice environment to do hobby. And that is my sales pitch for the night. I hope you enjoyed some of this stuff. I am going to knock it on the head. I am struggling a bit, Paolo, so thank you very much. So I hope you enjoyed it. I'll do a little bit more on the what makes a good hobby board, but I think two things to consider. Consider the narrative, consider the mechanic of the game you're playing, and in particular pay attention on each one of those games to how terrain impacts that game, and then think about how you can create both an advantage and a disadvantage for the players. So if line of sight is a major factor, then block line of sight, but also provide elevated positions that grant line of sight. Go like that. Write a little checklist, and then when you've got that checklist of I want stuff to block line of sight, I want stuff that creates line of sight, I want stuff that slows movement down, I want stuff that speeds movement up. How about a conveyor belt that when you step on it adds 2 inches to your movement? How about that in an industrial warehouse? Have fun with some of that. Write the rules, create the narrative, and then, you know what, the boards more or less design themselves. There you go. That's my final Monday musing thought. I wish you all the best. I will keep people posted on the community page. I feel terrible because I haven't checked out Surreal's. Sorry, not Surreal. Scott Beale. Well, we'll also, I haven't checked out Surreal for a while, but we haven't checked out Scott Beale's post on the community group. But please do so, and give him the likes that he no doubt deserves. Thank you very much, Hall. I am going to call it a night, and I will see you again shortly. I think the next show, Sam is away this weekend, I believe so. So there will be no Saturday show. But if I'm fit and able, and if the wonderful Acharya, correctly pronunciated this time, is joining me this weekend, which I hope is the case. Is that right, Acharya? Do you want to drop a quick comment and tell me whether you are coming down? You know what? If we're around and well, then it might be a Phil and Amit does Saturday show. We shall see. I hope so. I'm just going to wait 20 seconds for that lag to come through and for Acharya to tell me whether he feels he can join me side by side. We're going to, you know what, one last thing before I go, because I'm excited about this. We've got a couple of guests, a couple of visitors coming to Wargamer Online. So the first is the wonderful Acharya, who does all the work on the chat and keeps everybody in line and reminds everybody that we're trying to build a business here and to become beautiful members. He is joining me. That's great news. And also, we've... I don't know whether actually... I'll save the next one. I'll tell you about it, but that's happening in December, and that's exciting too. So I may be sharing the Monday Musing table with someone as well. So I'm pretty excited about that as well. Right. Good night all, and I hope to see you again soon. Look after yourselves. Bye.